Republican State Representative Katrina Pierson of Rockwall, thank you so much and welcome back to Eye on Politics.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. So, as you know, the redistricting case for the new Texas congressional maps moves from the legislature now to federal court in El Paso on October 1st, where they are going to hold a hearing on whether these new maps are constitutional. And as you know, the plaintiffs in this case and Democrats have also said that these maps are unconstitutional because they violate Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act and racially discriminate against these members, the minority members, African Americans, Latinos, et cetera. What do you say to that?
Well, I think that, any time that the Democrats don't get their way, they cry racism. I mean, that is the standard operating procedure. And I think that if anyone had come to any of the three public hearings that we had across the state, they would realize that these maps actually address some of the concerns that many people have been complaining about with regards to gerrymandering. We have essentially ungerrymandered the map in several places, and just a side-by-side comparison would show you just that. These communities are now made whole, counties have been made whole, cities have been made whole. So I think it's just something that they've always done when they don't get their way, but I do believe the maps are going to hold up in court. The Supreme Court has already ruled that you can draw maps based on political performance, and that's exactly what the state of Texas has done.
Now, I know some of the districts may be more compact, but in other cases, they're not. Other cases, they've grown larger. So, what do you say to that?
Well, I think it's quite simple when you realize that you have to have, 760 plus thousand people per district. Texas has a lot of rural areas still, and you have to be able to encompass all of those voters. And so I think in those areas you'll see in some cases where that might look that way, but it's just because everybody needs to be in a district. So there's no disenfranchisement. Everybody's in a district, and I just reject the notion that race is even involved here, because one of the things that we did here is that they wanted districts of people who look like them, sound like them, have the same culture, and those districts exist. There's 4 new Hispanic seats. It just doesn't make any sense. The reality is they don't want to face the truth. We heard testimony time and time again, particularly from the Democrat Congress people who came to testify, that Texas is a minority majority state. The problem that they have is also acknowledging that people in the state of Texas, under those circumstances, voted for President Trump 56% in the last election cycle, and this map reflects that.
And let me ask you about, as far as, because I know when we heard that Republicans, to your point, did not consider race when they drew these maps. But how do you explain the fact that suddenly there are 4 new Latino majority districts? Suddenly there at least in North Texas, there's 1 now majority Latino district, 33, and then there's 1 majority black district, the 30th congressional district, because before the 30th was considered, or 33rd was considered by the U.S. Justice Department as a coalition district and that it was illegal. So how do you square all those statements?
Very easily. I just again would point you to the Democrat Congress people who testified before the redistricting committee. Millions of people have moved to Texas over the last few years, and a lot of them are minorities, and they just so happen to be in similar areas. And when you have to draw by the rules, which is 760 plus thousand people per district, there are a lot of minorities consolidated in one place, and that is how those districts worked out. So it is an acknowledgement that Texas is becoming a minority majority district. So if you have minority majorities in places, you're going to have districts who reflect that. And that's why I'm proud to stand by this map.
And how concerned are you that, the courts may toss out these new maps and then also delay, at least as far as the congressional primaries?
Well, I don't think the courts are going to toss out the map because, like I said, a lot of the issues that were efficiently addressed. The previous maps were also in court, and so I think this map that we have passed here in the state of Texas this summer actually represents the people, the state of Texas, and its electorate. So I don't think they're going to throw out this map. The maps look really good. They're more compact. Cities have been made whole. Counties have been made whole. So once again, I just don't see them throwing it out.
You said that the 2025 case answers the 2021 lawsuit on the maps based back 4 years ago that were drawn up. And so I'm wondering, why has that case taken so long?
Jack, I think that's a question for the courts. I wasn't here when those maps were passed, so I'm not sure what all is entailed in that process. It has taken a very long time. But considering that those maps are still stuck in court, I think this map would alleviate a lot of the concerns, primarily because, again, the Democrats' arguments were that Texas is a majority minority state now, and they are still voting Republican. And these maps reflect that. So I'm very confident the maps are going to hold up in court. And I believe that minorities deserve the proper representation. In this case, in the state of Texas, they're voting Republican. That has been the trend. It's been that way since Trump got elected in 2016, and it continues to grow.
Well, there is no doubt that the president made gains among Latinos and African Americans, but a majority of African Americans are still voting for Democrats. And depending on where you are in the state, Latinos still vote for Democrats as well. Certainly along the border, they did vote for President Trump. But what do you say to Latinos? Say, look, we also vote for Democrats.
And I think that's fair. And I think that's why, if you look at these districts, they're not out of control districts. These are just winnable districts. These are just competitive districts. President Trump flipped a dozen counties, particularly of those on the border, and those voters deserve proper representation as well.
And then let me ask you finally, your name has been brought up in various publications, et cetera, as considering running for the newly Republican district, the 32nd Congressional District. So are you looking at this, and what would it take for you to decide to run?
Well, you're right. There has been a lot of pressure for me to run for Congress. I'm just truly humbled and just blessed to have so many people across the state. I've been very active here in the Republican Party for 15 years, fighting alongside so many people for conservative values. And so there is an effort to recruit me in this race. I am considering it. I'd be silly not to. I love the people here. And it is my home. I would be the hometown candidate, having grown up in the district, raised my kid in the district, church in the district, currently representing the district. And it would be my honor to represent these people in Congress, because Texas, as goes Texas, so goes the nation. And I just truly love my state. And no matter what, Jack, it's going to be Texas first. We are all Americans, and we want to save America. But I'm still a Texas girl first.
And so, what are some of the considerations that go into a decision like this?
Well, I just got back from DC not too long ago, having been with President Trump since the beginning, and came home, and the folks would not let me retire then. And I'm currently representing some of the greatest patriotic Americans in Texas. And I love it. And so that consideration is going to be a lot of prayer and a lot of talking to people, and just to see where God wants me to lead. Because regardless of whether it's here in Texas or in Congress, it's still about Him and maintaining the mission and making sure that we protect America.
And how soon are you going to make a decision?
Probably in the next couple of weeks. I'm on my own timeline here. I'm having a great time here in District 33, representing Rockwall and taking care of the folks here. But probably in a couple of weeks.
All right, we will leave it at that. Republican State Representative Katrina Pierson of Rockwall, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.